Good morning. It's 7:30 in the morning on September 20th, and this is a special meeting of the Troy City Council. Mrs. Knight, will you please do the roll call?
Mr. Kendall?
Here.
Mr. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Lutz?
Here.
Mr. Terwilliger?
Here.
Mr. Sievert?
Here.
Mr. Twist?
Here.
Mr. Heath?
Here.
Mr. Swazer?
Here.
Mrs. Oda?
Motion to excuse Mrs. Oda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to excuse Mrs. Oda. Please call for the vote.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mr. Terwilliger?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mr. Swazer?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mrs. Oda is excused.
Okay. Now we have to sign the notice of the special
We have
meeting.
to have the reading of the notice first.
Oh, okay, please.
Notice of special council of the City Council addressed to the members of council. You are hereby notified that there will be a special meeting of the City Council of the City of Troy, Ohio, at the council chambers in said city on Thursday, the 20th day of September 2018 at 7:30 a.m. for the purpose of considering R40 2018, object to FCC proposed regulations for small cell facilities, emergency legislation. 041 2018, notwithstanding legislation to allow overnight camping and fire pit at Treasure Island Park for UD River Stewards on September 29-30, emergency legislation, and 042 2018, reappropriation. This meeting is called by the Council President Baker pursuant to Rule 25 of the Troy City Council Rules for Procedure. And I will now pass this around to be signed.
Do we have to use your pen?
You can use any pen you wish.
Procedurally, may I ask a question? I don't know whether this is Grant or Mrs. Knight, but do we need to excuse Mrs. Baker?
No, we do not.
Okay.
I can hold on to it. Okay, thanks. Do you need back? I'll just get to you.
At the end, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll turn to if there's any citizen comments on committee reports or agenda items. And there's a 2-minute limit. All right, seeing none, let's move to resolutions. Mrs. Knight?
Resolution number R40 2018, resolution expressing opposition to the Federal Communications Commission's proposed declaratory ruling and third report and order streamlining deployment of next-generation wireless infrastructure and declaring an emergency. This is also requested to have information on this resolution prior to September 26, when the FCC will have a national meeting. This is the second reading.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments on this?
Move for suspension.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion for suspension by Mr. Phillips and a second by Mr. Twist. Any other comments? Okay. Mrs. Knight, would you please read the roll?
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mr. Terwilliger?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mr. Swazer?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes. Motion to adopt.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion to adopt by Mr. Phillips and a second by Mr. Swazer. Mrs. Knight, would you please read the roll?
Mr. Terwilliger?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Mr. Swazer?
Yes.
Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted.
Okay, now we move to ordinances. Mrs. Knight, would you please read 041, 2018.
Ordinance number 041, 2018, ordinance amending ordinance number 034, 2018, authorizing the use of an area of Treasure Island Park for a 2018 University of Dayton River Stewards Program event, notwithstanding conflicting provisions of the codified ordinances of the City of Troy, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. This is the same legislation previously adopted. It just does change the dates to September 29 and 30. Second reading.
Okay, are there any questions, comments regarding this legislation?
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion for suspension by Mr. Swazer and a second by Mr. Heath. Mrs. Knight, would you please read the roll?
Mr. Sievert,
Yes.
Mr. Twist,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Mr. Swazer,
Yes.
Mr. Kendall,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Lutz,
Yes.
Mr. Twilliger.
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion for adoption by Mr. Swazer and a second by Mr. Heath. Mrs. Knight, please read the call.
Mr. Twist,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Mr. Swazer,
Yes.
Mr. Kendall,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Lutz,
Yes.
Mr. Twilliger,
Yes.
Mr. Sievert.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted.
Okay, Mrs. Knight, would you please read ordinance 042, 2018?
Ordinance 042, 2018, ordinance amending ordinance number 030, 2017, as amended by ordinance number 019, 2018, and ordinance number 021, 2018, appropriating funds necessary for the various departments and offices of the City of Troy, Ohio for the year 2018. This is one of the routine reappropriations. There will be at least one or two more prior to year end. This one is primarily to have additional funding for the Hobart Arena to fund the various concerts that are coming. Second reading.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
Move to suspend. Second.
Okay, we got a motion for suspension by Mr. Swazer and a second by Mr. Twist. Mrs. Knight, would you please read the roll?
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Mr. Swazer,
Yes.
Mr. Kendall,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Lutz,
Yes.
Mr. Twilliger,
Yes.
Mr. Sievert,
Yes.
Mr. Twist.
Yes. Move to adopt.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion for adoption by Mr. Swazer and a second by Mr. Heath. Mrs. Knight, would you please read the roll?
Mr. Swazer,
Yes.
Mr. Kendall,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Lutz,
Yes.
Mr. Twilliger,
Yes.
Mr. Sievert,
Yes.
Mr. Twist,
Yes.
Mr. Heath.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted.
Okay. Having no other business to come before this body, I declare this meeting adjourned.